What is up, YouTube? Today I'll bring you guys an updated Pendulum Magician deck profile.
Don't lose your way, your mind, we have to be as one.
So anyway, guys, I finally got an updated deck list for you guys. It's been a little bit of a delay because I did go through a little bit of play testing and whatnot, kind of testing out some hands, making a few little minor changes to kind of bring you guys what I feel is the best list for me. And if you guys are wondering why Wavering Eyes and Luster Pendulum are not in this list, you feel free to check out my video that I posted yesterday before this deck profile went up, and I'll have it linked so you guys can actually watch it. So anyways, we all know what happened with Pendulum Magician this weekend at the UDS. It dominated the format because I feel like this deck is at this particular point in time. This deck is one of the best decks of the format. That could change in a month or so when we get Circuit Break and Tri-Gate Wizard comes out in the Cyber Structure deck. Nevertheless, if you're playing Pendulum Magicians at this point in time, this is the time because the deck is probably at its best. I say Pendulum Magicians because there is no Odd Eyes cards in this list. They just don't do enough anymore, and I don't think the new Odd Eyes monster changes that. But anyway, we'll go ahead and get to the main deck. So first off, we have 2 copies of Astrograph Sorcerer. I know some builds have 3, but I wanted to get it down to 40 cards, and this was a card that kind of like was negotiable to get down to 40 cards. You can definitely play 3. The card is really strong. Whenever a card you control is destroyed, you can special summon it, then destroy a card in pretty much any location that's been. You don't target it, but you choose one card that's been destroyed this turn, you special summon this, and then search a copy of that card. That includes your opponent's cards as well. So one of the cool interactions you have with this card is you can run over one of your opponent's monsters and then special summon this and search the same copy of the card you ran over. If they have a Joker online, that's one of the cool things you can do with it. Speaking of Joker, we have 3 copies of Skull Chocobat Joker along with the 2 Pendulum Sorcerers. These are the only Perform Pals I run. 3 Jokers, no brainer. I've seen people saying they only run 1, and I think they should. I think they're crazy, but anyways, Joker's one of the best cards in the deck. We don't need to talk, but the main reason I'm running the 2 Sorcerers is this is the ratio I actually ran last year, and I kept running 1, and there were times where I wanted to see it actually hard draw it. And I feel like 2 is kind of the perfect ratio with Sorcerer because Joker's the only target for it. If you do want to run extra targets, I would recommend Perform Pal Odd Eyes Dissolver because it is a dark spellcaster. It is a kind of a searchable quote-unquote hand trap. And I don't think Turtle and Lizard Draw are very good because they're bricks and they're not good scales. They just kind of sit in your scale after they resolve the combo. So yeah, so that's one of the reasons I played this over these Perform Pals. If you do play more though, I would recommend Dissolver, and that's it. Because everything else is kind of meh. Then 3 copies of Wisdom Eye Magician. Not too much to say here. This is one of the, much like Joker's, it's one of the most important cards. You have Magician and Perform Pal in your other Pendulum Zone. You can pop him and then set any Magician from your deck to your Pendulum Zone. Really important card. A lot of your combos are going to... Link Summoning does hurt this card a little bit because you can't, pop off several Wisdom Eyes in a turn and then splurge them all on the board anymore. But the card is still really strong. You still want to see it at the maximum amount Konami will allow you to play it. Next up, we have 3 Harmonizing Magician. I saw some people saying you could play 2, but I did some thinking because we were in Zoo format not too long ago, and we all know how annoying 1-card combos are. This is a 1-card combo, so you max them out at it to 3. Her Pendulum effect bumps up all your monsters by 100 attack and defense for each Magician in your extra deck with different names. It doesn't seem like that good of an effect, and it's kind of a mid to late game type effect, but it can put your opponent in a little bit of a pickle. You believe it or not, you'd think a difference between... It's a big deal when your Ignister is 30-50 versus 28-50. But its main thing you're playing it for, of course, is the monster effect. When it's Pendulum summoned, it allows you... From the hand, it allows you... Because you can't summon it from the extra deck. It piggybacks any Magician from your deck, and she's also a tuner. But she does have a little restriction where you can only make her with Magician monsters. You can't make something with this in Joker. It's important to remember, but it's a really strong card. You definitely want to play 3. Next up, we have 3 Double Iris Magician. One of the most important cards. Whenever it is once per turn, it can pop itself to pump up to make a monster do double attack. You can only do this going second though due to rulings because you can't do battle. You don't have a battle phase in your turn 1. But the main thing is that there are plenty of ways to get this thing popped off turn 1, so you can search your spells and traps. And it's, overall, I feel like this and Purple Poison and Black Fang can make for some sweet OTKs. Speaking of Purple Poison, we have 3 copies of Purple Poison Magician. There's some builds where I bumped it down, but this deck doesn't have as many low scales as high scales, which is kind of weird because it was always the opposite problem with the deck. But Purple Poison has so many just good interaction with the deck, because whenever your Dark Spellcaster monster battles, you can bump it up by 1200, then pop it, and then it'll pop another face-up card. Combos really well with the trap too, because you can pop off the trap, and then Purple Poison can pop another card. And it's just a really, really strong, and you want to maximize it because you don't have as many low scales as you would think with this deck. So, yeah, you definitely want to max on that. And another card I'm maxing out is 3 Black Fang Magician. So in testing, I was running Archfiend Eccentric, but I found Archfiend Eccentric just wasn't really contributing in combos. It was kind of just there. So I decided just to put this in, the third one of this in instead. And it is a really, really strong card because it allows you to play through, it gives you a lot of grinding in the mid to late game situations. It allows you to play through Solemn Strike, which, if you're playing this deck correctly, Solemn Strike does not hurt you whatsoever. So, yeah, you don't have to worry about that super rare reprint. And then for the last 2 Pendulum Monsters, we have 2 copies of Oath Dragon Magician. One of the most important cards. I do think 2 is kind of the proper number with him. It's what I've been running for a long, long time, and I don't see why I should change. The only problem with Oath Dragon is a level 6. It is important, obviously, because of Natural Rule 4, because you can constantly keep adding magicians back from your extra deck and from your grave when he's normal summon. He is a wind monster, though, so that kind of doesn't contribute. It's not a dark spellcaster, so you kind of just want it to sit in the scale to add resources back. But overall, it's a really important card, in my opinion, and 2 is kind of the proper number. Then for some of the non-Pendulum monsters, we have 2 copies of Mist Valley Apex Avian. I understand this card spiked like crazy, and a lot of people, it's a love-hate type of card, but I really do like the card. And if you guys have recommendations of what I could play over this card, please let me know. But I do feel like Avian is a really strong card. It allows you to, basically gives you a turn 1 play, and it gives you something you can constantly keeps putting pressure on your opponent, and it's always for something really nice. You can Pendulum Summon into an established board because, assuming their back row is not Solemn Strike, this thing can solidify your Pendulum Summons by negating things, and it's just overall a really strong card. But I'm a little not sure how good it is. But if you don't have this is Jeff Jones said in his deck profile, it said on Facebook, I believe he said that if you play these, if you don't have Ashes, but I just really like the card, and it's in here for now. Speaking of Ash, we have 2 for hand traps. We have 1 Maxi and 2 Ash Blossoms. Maxi is self-explanatory. I know a lot of people are saying because True Dracos exist, you don't play this card. Those people are stupid. You just sided out against True Dracos. But anyway, Maxi is a staple. It is still legal. Konami left it at 1, so you play it the maximum amount Konami will let you until it's banned. It's banned, but anyways, enough about that. Ash Blossoms, actually, I feel like there's a reason it's spiking right now, because Ash Blossom is probably, it just negates so many different things, but now that Zoo's gone, this card has gotten a lot better, as I thought it would. And overall, I feel like it's one of the best hand traps in the game right now. If you don't have them, there's definitely Roll Knockbird, definitely a solid alternative. Or you could or if you're not playing Avians, you just play this. You just replace these with 2 Avians. But overall, I feel like Ash is a really, really strong card. If you are main decking a hand trap, this is really good. This is probably the best one you can be. Then for the spells, we have 3 Duelist Alliance. Not too much to say about Duelist Alliance. It is a really strong card. I've seen some people say you run 2 or want 2 because it's a hard once per turn, and I think that's dumb. There's so many situations where you want this card in your opening hand because it finishes that last little piece you need, and it's just overall you have so many targets for it, and you just want to see it in your opening hand. You don't play cards at 2 that you want to see all the time, essentially. Then for our draw cards, we have 1 Upstart Goblin, 2 Potted Desires. When I took the Eccentrics out, this was what went in because I wanted kind of more combo pieces. But Potted Desires is really, really good in this deck now because we have everything back at 3, and it gives you 2 extra cards to work with, and that in of itself is really, really good. This deck also has easy Omega access, so the Banishing 10, you can put them back with Omega in a pinch, and overall it's a really strong card. It says draw 2 cards, you definitely should play it in Pendulum Magicians. Then for the last 3 spells, we have 2-star Pendulum Glass and 1 Pendulum Call. I've seen a lot of different ratios between 2 and 1, but since I am playing Pot of Desires, I feel like 2 is kind of the bueno number. It basically puts your opponent in a kind of predicament where if they keep trying to remove your scales, as long as this is up, you'll just search another scale. So you have to Cosmic Cyclone this first before they go off. So that's actually really strong. I feel like Pendulum Call is a one-of. I've had builds that play 2. It really depends on how, if you're going to a local, you have to think, is my opponent going to have Ash? If they have Ash, you can probably play multiples of this, but it is Ash bait. But that being said, I do feel like, the deck has enough searches to bait it out. But anyways, I feel like this with Pot of Desires in this list, this is kind of proper ratio, because you really, really need Pendulum Call. You can search it out, but you don't need it. Then 2-time Pendulum Graphs. This is for not only traps. This is probably one of the reasons the deck's even competitively viable. Basically, it's a searchable, continuous kind of Regeki break type effect where you target a magician, target a card, and pop it. But it also has this neat little effect that if you both cards don't get destroyed, you get to send a card your opponent controls as well. And that resolves in the same chain and it doesn't target. So it's really difficult for your opponent to dodge if they don't know that it does that. So it kind of allows you to play, it's one of the ways you play around, established boards and whatnot, because non-targeting protection is really, really good. Or non-targeting effects are really good. Then for the side deck, I have 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. Honestly, I feel like Droll is probably one of the best side deck cards in the game going forward. If not even main deck worthy, because biggest thing is with terraforming still at 3, field spells are a really big thing, and most field spells search something else when they're activated or whatever. So if you draw Lockbird on a terraforming, it's a lot of top tier a lot of the decks that are going to be running around this format. You're going to be peachy because they're not getting any other draws or searches for the rest of the turn. And it's also pretty good against tricksters, because if you do use it on their initial searches, like the terraforming, the light stage, they're not going to get any more searches for the rest of the turn. So basically what this means is they're going to have to open up, have to have every piece in their hand. They're not going to be able to search out the pieces they need to kill you. So overall, I feel like this, and of course this card's really devastating in spirals because the deck does need multiple searches to go off. Overall, I feel like if you don't have a playset of Droll and Lockbirds, I highly recommend picking them up because I feel like they are one of the best cards you can have for this format. Then I have for some of the normal summon cards, I have 2 Denko Sekkas and 2 Side Blockers. I keep going back and forth on Denko Sekka. You want to have it in here in case Paleos come up or any kind of back row heavy deck. You just normal summon it, turn off all that noise off. However, Zaphion's a card that can hit that Jeff Jones was playing, and he mentioned that you can use it to get rid of cards like Anti-Spell Fragrance. That's one of the reasons I have Side Blocker in here, because Side Blocker is good both going first and going second. If you go first, you can normal summon, you can Pendulum summon it out and then call whatever key card your opponent needs to go off. If you're going second, you can use it to turn off Anti-Spell Fragrance and other Imperial Order, annoying floodgates and stuff like that. Overall, I feel like Side Blockers are a pretty dang solid card to side. That's why it's in here. Then I have 2 copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. I still feel like Ghost Ogre is a pretty solid card, and it is a decent replacement if you don't have Ash Blossoms or Droll and Lockbirds. It's not a bad card to main deck instead of those cards, but I'm not sure how good Ghost Ogre is going to be going forward. It's not really good in the Pendulum Magician Mirror because the scales get their effects when you Ghost Ogre them. The only thing you're really going to be hitting with this is the spell and the trap. Pendulum Graphs, I don't know. I think the card's really solid though. It hits Diagram, it does hit powerful field spells. It just doesn't, you're not hitting Light Stage. It doesn't hit Light Stage though, unfortunately. And for the last monster, I have 1 Kaiku. This is kind of like a little spicy tech of mine. So Kaiku is a dark spellcaster, so you can search it with Time Star over here. So the main thing is you're going to be searching it out and then summoning it out. And it has 2 effects, but the second one is the one you care about. When it inflicts battle damage, it can target up to 2 monsters opponent graveyard and then banish them. The second effect says your opponent cannot banish cards from either player's graveyard. So the decks that matters against are 2 decks, which are Dinosaurs and ABCs. Dinosaurs aren't quite as relevant, but ABCs are going to kind of creep back in, and that's why you have Kaiku in here. It also a dark spellcaster, so you can bring it out of the grave, reuse it, bring it back. With Black Fang Magician, you can pump it up with Purple Poison. Basically, if you have this against ABCs and they don't have, this and a Purple Poison, they basically have to have a board wipe or a Kaiju where they lose. Really, really strong card, and I highly, highly recommend it, going forward. Then 2 Cosmic Cyclones definitely could go to 3. But I only have the 2 at the moment. But Cosmic Cyclone is a really, really strong card. And I still don't think that Twin Twisters or Heavy Dust Storm is going to be quite as effective. Depends on how good True Dracos are going forward. If True Dracos do get phased out of the format, I do think that you could play other removals, but I kind of like Cosmics, just gets the threat off the board, banishes it, no float effects. And for the last 3 side, I have 3 traps, just 1 warning, 2 strikes. These could be interchangeable with whatever trap you feel like is the most relevant to side in when you're going first. But I'm looking towards Spiral format if I am going first against them. I do want the strike and the warning for their double helix. It's pretty good against ABCs because if you Solemn Strike the Dragon Buster, they can't recur it with Magnet Reverse, which is a card a lot of ABC players are playing. So yeah. Then for the extra deck, I have the 1 Decode Talker. I don't think this deck really needs to link summon all that much, but I do like having the 1 Decode Talker in here for kind of a mid-game situation where I need those multiple zones open. I just happen to have 3 monsters out. So, but the important thing to remember is you don't want to turbo into this, especially going first because of this little arrow right here. You do not want to give your opponent a zone to summon monsters. That is very, very important. That's the same thing with ABCs, is because most of the time when they make their Decode Talker turn 1, you can take advantage of the fact that that zone this card opens up a zone for you. It's a very important thing to remember. Then I have the 1 Supreme King Starving Venom for the only fusion. If you want to play more fusions, you can definitely play Form Pal Odd Eyes Dissolver. It's a really, really good card. But this is mainly in here because of it outs Floodgate Trap Hole, which is a very, very popular card. It's a side deck right now. And it's a very popular card in the main even right now. And it hits... this kind of outs it. If you Pendulum Summon and your opponent Floodgate Trap Holes, you can actually contact Fusion into this. And which is really nice. It also has some kind of neat little niche effects where it can copy a card in a monster in either player's graveyard and copy its effect, which is really, really good. But the other thing is it does piercing damage, which may not seem like a lot, making all your monsters do piercing damage, but if your opponent happens to be playing the defensive game or trying to hold you off as scapegoats, this card's effect will punish them for it. Really, really strong card. It also combos well with a lot of the Magician effects because you can pump up their attack and have them deal piercing damage, which is really good. Then for the Exceeds, I have 2 Time Star Magicians. I know a lot of players I've heard play 1, and there were so many instances in testing where when Emerald was legal before it was banned, I kept wanting to go into Emerald just to put this back, and I decided, okay, putting it to 2 because I need the second one. And that's kind of how it is with this card. And I'm going to be honest, you have enough negotiable extra deck space to where, playing 2 is not a problem. But overall, I actually do really like the card. It's really important. You kind of want to get into it in your early combos. It combos really well with the trap and can protect your Pendulum monsters from board wipes. And it searches any Dark Spellcaster. Really important card. Really, really good. The 1 Evil Swarm Nightmare, I keep going back and forth on this. Theoretically, this card is supposed to be here against decks that, special summon because it puts them face down, especially against extra deck Liant decks. You can lock them out of their extra monster zone with this. The problem is it's prone to board wipes, and while I don't know how much of an issue that's going to be going forward, so with the board wipes hit, I figured Nightmare is a card that can probably go back to the main board. And overall, I feel like it's a pretty decent card. Your entire deck is dark, and it's a 1950 body that kind of is really hard to play around for a lot of decks. The 1 Abyss Dweller, do not ever cut this card from your Magician extra deck ever. Floaters and Magicians don't always play along, and every time the few times I've tried to cut this card, I really, really wish I didn't. Important card, do not cut it. Important thing to note is, before I go any further, is that Jeff Jones mentioned something with Decode Talker where you can summon a Dweller to the zone that the Decode Talker points to, then use its effect, and even if they buster it away, it's no biggie. You can just follow up with something like the monster I'm going to mention later in a Clear Wing. You can Dweller it, and then they don't get any of their grave effects, so it's very important to know. You can take advantage of getting that extra zone. Then for Castell and Tornado Dragon. Castell's kind of honestly, it's really weird for me to say this, but I don't know how much I make Castell anymore. When I got a hold of one a few years ago, it was pretty much a staple, but I don't know if it is anymore. Tornado Dragon's obvious because it's a quick effect MST that can be really disruptive and pop off your double Iris, but I still feel like you have the room, so play Castell, why not? And Tornado Dragon is obvious, it's a quick effect MST. Then for the last rank 4, one Karen Gorgon. This is a card I never really played in my extra deck, but theoretically it is pretty dang good. We do have a lot of targeting effects running around, so this can redirect those targeting effects. It protect this and the trap card combos really well together. Kind of like having, and you have the space, so why not? Then for the synchros of one Supreme King Dragon Clearwing, this combo I mentioned earlier with Abyss Dweller is that after you've, if you're playing against a deck that has a lot of floaters, when this thing is synchro summoned, it destroys all face-up monsters your opponent controls. So you combo this with Abyss Dweller, and none of those monsters are going to get their grave effects. Really strong card. You can go into one card with Harmonizing Magician, and it's just really, really good. It also has a second effect that that's kind of like a construct-y-like effect. When it attacks into a monster, it destroys that monster and burns them, but honestly, like most of the time, the nuke effect is what's relevant. It also has a grave effect for some reason that doesn't really come up unless you play Dark Worm. Then one Enlightenment Paladin. This is a card I actually added back in. Even though this list doesn't have Wavering Eyes, I do think that it's still really strong because it's a Dark Spellcaster, so you can pump out tons of damage with this thing, and you can make it with one card, and you can grab any spell back from your graveyard with it. Really, really strong card. Being able to grab back a Duelist Alliance or any other spell like that's really strong. Then we have the one Stardust Dragon. I'm not sure about this card. Theoretically, it's good because I like having it because board wipes are a thing, and that Wavering Eyes is legal again. I kind of like having it in here, but it's a debatable extra deck spot because Time Start kind of does the same thing, but I kind of like just having it in here because, well, Stardust is one of my favorite old cards, and it's nice that it moves itself when it activates the negation effect. It moves itself out of the main monster zone. Speaking of moving out of the main monster, the extra monster zone. Speaking of moving down the extra monster zone, we have Cyframe Lord Omega. So Omega is obviously important for that reason. There's a lot of combos where you will make Omega and then have it banish itself to open up your extra monster zone from another extra deck combo. And because we are playing Pot of Desires, this can put face down banished cards back, or any card banished off a Harmonizing Magician. It just allows you to kind of have a little bit more of a grind game with this deck, because this deck can really, really grind. Then the other one Ignister and one Bilza for the last two synchros. Bilza's still here because True Dracos are a thing. As long as they are a thing, you should have a Bilza in your extra deck. I know it's really expensive right now for some reason. Konami hasn't reprinted it yet. But Ignister is also pretty much a staple. It's non-targeting removal that allows you to pop off effects really, really good. So anyway, guys, in the comment section down below, let me know what you guys think of this deck profile down in the comment section below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. So, Storm signing out.